Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday the 6th of September 2023, coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G3UCQ. Lovely to see you. On tonight's show, we find out more about the Spitfire Morse key from John G3UCQ. We talk about some of the other exciting club weekends still coming up this summer. And we find out what on earth this is, or what is it for. But we start with club news and the sad news that John G0MXN is silent key. John had been ill for some time and was a keen radio amateur and a member of our club for a long time, who also used to play a very active role in Raynet. We send our thoughts and sympathies to his family and friends. And it was John's wish for a small private funeral with close family only attending, so we won't be giving any funeral details. We'd also like to share with you a rather personal loss for us, because Nanny, or otherwise known as Edna to many, but Nanny to many as well, was an avid viewer of NARC Live. She was Tammy's nanny, Tammy and Kevin's nanny, and she watched it all of the time on her iPad. When we started it way back in 2020, we had a little button where she could go to BATC and watch it. And we lost her last week, so we hope you don't mind that we pay tribute to her here on NARC Live. This is where Tammy co-presented from her flat last time. Now some more club news, and last weekend we had 2 field day stations, and let's have a look at the VHF station first. These pictures don't really do justice in a way to all of the work and effort that went into preparing for both these stations. This, as you can see, there are 2 masts here. This was at Trimmingham on the North Norfolk coast. And you can see another view there, again with one of the club masts down. But they did have a few technical challenges and things, but as they told me, they don't think it would be a field day without those sort of last minute worries. I was there very briefly, and at the time that was just before they were going to start at 3 o'clock, and suddenly the generator sprung an oil leak, which was quite worrying. It was literally with 10 minutes to go, I think, and yet they started setting this all up on Thursday. But nevertheless, they had a good weekend. I'm not going to mention the results or scores from them or the other team yet, because that's still got to be checked and everything. And I'm sure they'll write it up and tell you the details in due course. Let's have a look at the other station, though. This was very near us here in Great Ellingham. And it's in the traditional space opposite DCP. And there you can see this is for SSB Field Day on almost exactly the same time, the same weekend. This one started an hour earlier at 2 p.m. BST until 2 p.m. on Sunday. I'd like to pay tribute to all those people who worked, especially preparing and planning and putting these stations together, and also to all the other people who came to visit them and work them on the air as well. I'm sure they've given us results to be proud of for the club, and so we'll look out for those details in the newsletter soon. Also, in the last few weeks, as you may know if you were at the club one week, we surreptitiously passed around a card because Kevin M0UJD got married to Becky M7BEE, and we presented them with a club gift. This is a laser engraved Welsh slate tray, which we hope was an appropriate wedding gift. As you can see at the bottom there, it was personalised for them. Congratulations to them, Mr. and Mrs. Coleman.
Yep.
Now, as I promised, we've got details of more summer events, and we start this Sunday, just a few days away, with Radio by the Seaside. It's our usual traditional place. We've been many, many years. We did one, I can't remember, was it July, I think, just before the schools broke up, and it was very, very popular, well attended, and several people said, why do we only have one? Can we not have another one? So just after the schools have gone back, we thought we'd arrange another one, so it's not quite so busy, and they can give us an area of our own, and that's just gives some of the pictures from the one in July. So I hope you can make that. As I said, it's the main sort of coastal car park on Water Lane, which is just opposite the shops in West Runton. We loosely say from 10 a.m, but you can arrive whatever time you like, really. It will cost you just £4 to park all day. It's a lovely social event. You don't have to take radios, but as you can see, many people do. And it's a great place to socialise as well. So that's from 10 a.m. this coming Sunday. I hope you'll be there. Now, we also need to tell you, though, about another event, which isn't strictly speaking a NARC event. Well, it isn't a NARC event. It's called the Caister Radio Rally. It's based at Caister Lifeboat Station, and it raises money for Caister Lifeboat. It's a radio rally that, again, on the same day. It starts, I believe it's open to the public from 9. I hope I'm right in saying that. There were no details in the email or the message that I've seen, which wasn't sent to me, unfortunately. But I think it's 9 o'clock in the morning. So what you could do is go there, have a little look for some bargains or whatever, and then come along to Radio by the Seaside. Just go a lovely coast route around from Caister to West Runton. But anyway, good luck with that. And finally, I want to tell you about probably one of our last summer events. We did ask if many people were interested in running another fox hunt, our direction finding competition, and there were quite a few people who did. So we're going to run that on Sunday, the 1st of October. This is the first time we've announced the date. This was the best date for most teams. This is one of the pictures from the one earlier this year, with the trophy one, I think that one was from. So there's a great opportunity to take part. It leaves from Thorpe Recreation Ground, but there's a slight twist this time, because we have it with the Fox team who won last year, who traditionally become the Foxes, can't do it this year, can't be the Foxes. So we are looking for someone who's prepared to be the Fox. What does that mean? Well, it means you just need to be able to transmit on 2 meters. Now, normally the Fox hides themselves away in some bit of, countryside or something like that, buries themselves in some trees or, a remote place. But we thought, someone suggested actually, I can't remember who it was, but they suggested that we did it a little bit differently. And what we could do is do it from somebody's house with your regular shack. But of course, you would be known by a lot of people where you operate from. So the best way would be to get a chum to come and actually operate your equipment. That's just one idea. And if you're near, by the way, if you're fairly near a pub as well, because it's a Sunday, it would be nice for people to be able to stop and have some lunch as well. So there's a challenge for you. If you've never been involved with this, but you fancy helping us for a couple of hours, it will start at 10 a.m. and finish at midday. And and then move on to a pub and have a lunch somewhere with all the teams that are taking part. I think there'll be 5 or 6 teams from what I've seen going to take part. So that's the date, 10 a.m. Look for further details, but we really do need someone to step forward as the Fox. Either it can be one of the teams, and one of the teams has offered, who normally go and hunt them, but we thought this might be an opportunity for anybody else who's got a fairly decent 2-meter station, who can reach the Thorpe Recreation Ground, sit on Simplex, and would be willing to work with somebody else to operate from there. It might be quite fun, as long as there's somewhere for about 5 or 6 cars to turn up outside. So let me know, drop me an email to the usual address if you can help us with that. Finally, on news, we have some pictures from people. Firstly, these pictures come from Bob, G3UCQ, a regular contributor to us. He sent us some holiday pictures with a difference. Let's see some of these now. Tammy's just going to play them out to us now. So this is where we're talking about. This is the actual location. And what it is some lost sheep. And it doesn't half remind me of an advert that's on at the moment. I don't know if you know what I mean. Isn't that Virgin Fibre? So they're goats. But look at this. This is a close-up. So that was a map where they are. If you have a close look there, I'm not sure if you can see this at home, depending on what you're watching it on probably, but there are 2 sheep there. And this is quite a dramatic part of your holiday, I think, Bob. So you've got 2 great pictures of those. You've said that just a couple of pictures from the dramatic rescue of 2 sheep that had gone over the edge in near Clashnessy Highlands. There are 2 sheep stuck in the gully halfway between, oh, come on, Tammy, Arknacarnin and Clashnessy. The lamb is just above high tide mark, and luckily the wind is blowing northwards. The other is about 4 metres down a vertical face with no way up. They were rescued with the help of a tractor with a backhoe and bucket and ropes. Wow, that's all I can say. So that advert that we see, which you tell me is CGI, I don't know.
They have hang gliders, don't they?
They have hang gliders and things. Yeah, goats on hang gliders. But
Perhaps
anyway, this
these guys
reminded me
haven't
of
practiced it.
that. No, they realised they needed the hang gliders. All right. Thanks for those, Bob. And we've got a couple more pictures from you as well. This angel cloud was actually spotted by his son in Thailand. Wow, that is fantastic.
It's cool, doesn't it?
It does look like this almost man-made. And we've got some more scenery shots. Beautiful scenery. He always does get some fantastic shots. They're almost like lively shots. There's a lovely sunset there.
Last but not least.
Last but not least, that. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed for sharing those with us, Bob, G6PWS. Thanks. And finally, this is a picture that I saw. I had a moment to quick look at Facebook today, and I saw these, and I knew who posted them. It was Matt M0PTO with his wife Rachel, and I just thought it was one of those melting heart moments for me, anyway. Just maybe it's because I've been looking after a 3-year-old for a couple of weeks, but I think I'm not going to say any more. Just to show you the picture, because it is one of those things where a picture means 1,000 words. Have a look at this.
Seeing him off.
Don't you think it's lovely?
Yeah.
All your toys saying goodbye to first day back at school. And there he is waving. And this is young Theo Reeve. So thanks very much for letting us share those pictures.
So hope you had a good day at school.
And Rachel. Yeah, I hope so. But I just thought that was a wonderful picture. Tammy, over to you. Little people.
Little people, yeah. Have you ever wondered when you get to an airport what makes the baggage thing go round?
Is it a video cassette?
It's video cassettes.
Or I shouldn't have even identified that, because that shows my age immediately, doesn't it? Even knowing what a video cassette is now.
It's okay, I know what a video cassette is.
So they've used the other cassette up the other way to
They've
show...
pulled the top off.
Oh, and that is the tape.
They?
That is the video tape. Oh, my goodness. I love the ingenuity of these guys in Japan who come up with this. Miniature-calendar.com. As we say, they put a new picture up every day, but I love that one. That's really good. Thank you very much, Tammy. So what have you been up to? As you can see, we've got some club news from members, indeed non-members as well. If you'd like to share those with us, we would love to hear them. Send them to this usual address, radio@dcpmicro.com. We're actually not meeting for 3 weeks now for NARC Live online, so you've got plenty of time to get those pictures and stories to us from your summer exploits. We'd love to share them with everybody else. Now it's time for that competition that we set 2 weeks ago now, when I was left here on my own trying to run things.
Trash the joint.
Did I?
Yeah.
How was your computer after you said there was
all
these pictures you said?
My desktop looked like a trash bin.
Oh, like a desktop. Right, like my real desktop.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's have a look at this. This is what we asked you. What on earth is this? I think it's going to be one of those things that you either know or you don't know, looking at the results. So we've had quite a few entries. Take a deep breath, Tammy, and here we go. Do you want to start?
Am I starting?
Oh, you would. I'll start if you like.
I don't mind.
There's no.
You start
okay.
them.
I think you're setting me up here. Paul G4ZBA. I think the thing is a tool for putting rubber sleeves onto cables and wires.
Steve G3EVA. This is a tool for putting PVC or rubber sleeving on cables used before adventure of heat shrinking sleeving.
Now, Kevin M0UJD, he rarely enters this, but I think he saw an opportunity somehow. He says, I think this week's What on Earth is a Hellman Titan rubber application tool, but because of the way it works, it's also known as an XXXX. Yes, you're right, Kevin. I'm not going to say what that was. Just suffice to say that you're just back from honeymoon. That's all I'm going to say. Does that count? I dare you to say it, he said. That's as much as I'm saying. Tammy.
Mike, GAEY. Nice to see one of these after using them at work. These are called Hellman pliers, a 3-pronged tool for expanding rubber sleeves to apply over wires and cables.
Kev M0KKM says, this week's What on Earth is a set of Hellman pliers used to fit neoprene rubber cable sleeving. They're often used with Hellman lubricant, probably the most slippery stuff known to mankind. They were known by many other names in military circles, but these are not suitable for a family show. I quite agree, Kev, but that didn't stop some people, I can tell you.
It's all the Kevs at the moment, isn't it?
It is. You're right. That's the common thing. All right.
Tony G0MQG. It's a sleeve stretcher for stretching insulating sleeves over terminals once crimped or soldered over wires.
Andy M0CNM says this is used to stretch rubber sleeving so that wires can be inserted into the sleeving. After the wires are inserted, the handle is released and the 3 prongs pulls out from the sleeving. Can also be used for tight-fitting O-rings and grommets.
Grommets. John G4NEY. I can remember using these with rubber sleeves and sometimes a substance called Hellman oil. Basically, to cover solder, bare wire connections, you could use a rubber sleeve.
Bob GSTU, it's used for fitting rubber sleeves on cable connections such as mic leads or expanding them to fit over the joint.
Simon G5SHO, they are Hellman Titan cable sleeve stretchers. I'm an electrical engineer and have the exact same ones for work, inside panels, etc. Brilliant piece of kit. Hope you don't mind me chipping in.
I think, yes, I think Simon, someone who just saw this on our Facebook page actually, and just, but no, lovely to hear from you,
More the
Simon.
merrier.
Absolutely, that's what I say. David at G3VSJ says this week's What on Earth item is what I use to fit Hellman sleeves onto the end of cables and plugs. There's a sort of gentle theme here, isn't there? Do you think it might be right?
Yeah. Merv MI0TMW, Hellman pliers, still got a pair from my offshore days, still use them to make things just that bit neater.
And this one, I happen to know, is the one that we can read out an alternative use or name for them. This is from Bruce G4KZT, who says this week's object is a Hellman sleeve expander used to open rubber sleeves wide enough to get the cables through. I've been told these can also be used as a nasal expander to reduce snoring, but I've never fancied trying it myself, and we don't recommend it.
Well, I'll try it tonight and let me know.
Well, who on, Tammy? Who on? I love the fact, though, this is honestly truth, he's putting it in little snoring. So that's where Bruce lives. Brilliant.
Work Barnes, this is a tool for stretching silicone sleevings that can be placed over soldered or crimped joints on wires, used more in the days before the heat shrink sleeving.
David G3PM MPN says, I believe the technical name for that device is Hellman pliers, used for expanding various tubing to pass over a cable or joint.
Are we near the end?
And we are nearly the end, yes. It's unusual for everybody to get the same one. I'm not saying if they're right or not, but there's definitely a theme.
Right, John G3NHS, Hellman pliers, known as something else in my RAF days, used with Hellerine oil, known as XXX oil.
I had to put that because, frankly, the oil had a worse name than the other bit that I couldn't quote. So anyway, so there's something about this in the military, although I was told another name for it when I was a 16-year-old starting in my apprenticeship at Pi, but never mind. Paul G3VPT says, an easy one this time. It's a sleeve stretcher for use with wire projects. It's been in use for here for 50 years, he says. His own one. The invention of heat shrink has taken over. That's what several people say, isn't it? Yeah.
Colin M0GMK, this week's object is Hellman pliers used to stretch rubber sleeves over cables.
By the way, just adding on to that, I will say that I've got one of these, and you can also use them for stretching heat shrink if it's not quite big enough to put on. Anyway. And finally, Malcolm G3PH says, it's a stretcher for fitting sleeving on cables, a regular item in the work toolbox.
And breathe.
And the answer, would you believe it? I'd love to
What
say
do you reckon it is?
they were wrong, but they were right because it was a Hellman.
Oh, I haven't. I've just put stretch.
Stretch.
I think I meant to put stretch there.
Yeah, I wish you had. Anyway, we're moving swiftly on, I think, as I say. Now, this is at a point which we very rarely, occasionally do, actually. It's called Dave's Demo. And just for those of you who don't know, and there can't be many looking at those entries. I think we had 20-odd entries there.
You just want to show off that you got one, don't you?
I do want to show off I got one. So this is a real thing. It was Richard who sent it in, but this is the real thing. And this is how it works. I've chosen a different colour sleeving to sort of show it. Now, if I hold it really close up, hopefully you'll be able to see. So you've got these three things there, which if I pull those open, that's what happens. So it doesn't take much imagination then to say, when I put this on, this is where demos go wrong. All right, and you put it on there. That's a rubber sleeve.
Face the camera.
Oh, face the camera, okay. But I think it's better from the side, maybe, something like that. And then it opens it. Can you see through there? Me opening it? And then I've got a piece of cable here that I prepared earlier. Oh, I see what I did then. And I put that in, and about there, I've done it wrong. I can't believe it. I put it in the wrong side. It's because I'm trying to do it in front of the camera and got it the wrong way. So I put this in.
I think it's called Dave's Dodgy Demo.
Yeah, it is. I put this in with the cares there and that bit there. And as I said, you can use it for heat shrink as well. And then you pull this off, and this is when it all goes horribly wrong. Then you end up with your rubber sleeve on the end of your wire, but most of you knew that.
You haven't covered the wires though.
No, well, you don't. You leave those to expand, but it covers and seals the end of the wire, especially a piece of coax where you've got stray bits.
Okay.
I tried. Anyway, thanks very much, Richard, for sending that. We would love some more, by the way. So if you've got anything unusual, it doesn't have to be an electronic-y type tool like that one. It can be a kitchen implement, one of those gadgets that KTEL and Ronco used to sell, or anything like that that you think, I bet they won't guess what this is. Do send them to us, the usual address, radio@dcpmicro.com. Well, we've got a more challenging one, we think, for you this week. Because can you tell us what on earth this is? I'm not going to give a clue here.
I'm going to give a clue. There's a bit of metal.
Oh, right. You're going to have to rack your brains to find out what this is. Send your answers to radio@dcpmicro.com by 3 o'clock Wednesday for the next NARC Live. So just under 3 weeks you've got for working out what that is and letting us know. Have a guess if you don't know. Radio@dcpmicro.com. We need to know by 3 o'clock on the day of NARC Live. Before we meet our tonight's guest, we've just got time to tell you what's happening in the club this week. On Sunday at 7 o'clock, we've got the GB2RS news on GB3MB. On Monday, we've got the Monday Night Net at 7:30, also on GB3MB, and at 2000 at 8 o'clock, the 80 metre CW net on 3.543 megahertz. Then next Wednesday, September the 13th, it's a social and bright sparks for our younger members meeting at CNS School in our usual place between 7 and 9:30. The following Wednesday is also a meeting at the CNS School, and that will be a social with a Raspberry Pi get-together. And then we meet again here, as I said, for NARC Live in 3 weeks' time, when we've got Nick, G3RWF, who's going to tell us how to make a cheap, lightweight, compact HF beam. We did a rehearsal with him yesterday, actually, and that looks really interesting as well. So please let us have your stories and all the other details for the club. And also remember, we have this club card, which we're very happy to send to anybody, either who's lost somebody or to cheer them up. We can send this to anybody, to anyone in the world. They don't have to be a member of the club. They don't even have to be a radio amateur. Just let us know to this address, radio@dcpmicro.com. Send us the details for their address and we'll post it. Add your name to ours and we'll post it to them. Thanks very much. Well, now, when I saw who Roger had booked for tonight's talk, I thought, this sounds interesting. But what does it really mean? I mean, the talk is called a talk about the Spitfire Morse key. So I thought, could it be the Spitfire or is it something else? Some just kind of special Morse key. But I'm excited for this because it really does mean the real Spitfire famous plane. And it's lovely to welcome John, G3UCQ. Hello, John.
Hello, David, and all the meeting. Very, very pleased to be here.
Yeah, and it's lovely to see
this presentation.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to it as well. Before you start, before we came on air, you just mentioned which club you were a member of. Maybe you'd like to tell us, because it's a very famous place in terms of amateur radio, isn't it?
Well, yes. For those who haven't looked me up on qrz.com, I'm actually in Cornwall, and my club, well, in fact, a member of two clubs down here. One of them is the Poldhu Amateur Radio Club, which is actually sited on the site of Marconi's transmission across the Atlantic back in 1912. There's a museum there, and which is manned by members of the Poldhu Radio Amateur Club, and it's open on Wednesdays and Sundays, usually. And at this time of the year, because we've had visitors, they usually get about 20 or 30 visitors there. The difficulty is trying to get members to man it because it's actually such a long way away. But saying about the Poldhu, it's right on the top of the cliffs, 200-foot cliffs going down into the Atlantic. And the problem with the Poldhu Club is keeping the aerials in the air. Now, that's exactly the same problem that Marconi had back in the day, because not long before he made his historic transmission across the Atlantic in 1912, all of his aerials, 200-foot wooden masts, blew down in a severe gale. Now, the problem is that because these aerials are on the top of a cliff, the wind coming from the west, which it always does, a prevailing wind across the Atlantic, batters onto the cliff, goes over the top, and all the turbulence pulls the aerials down. And Poldhu have exactly the same problem and keep the aerials in the air. I don't think they're doing so bad at the moment because They've got a 3-element beam at the moment. I think that did get damaged in the first 6 months, but apparently it's okay now. But they've got 2 60-foot towers there, which keep up. But if you want to go there, you can always operate. There are 2 stations. One's got an IC 7300, and the other one's got a Yaesu rig. And you can go there and operate as GB2GM.
Wow.
And they're always welcome to get people there to come and operate, as long as you've got your license, of course. And so you can do that. The other, I'm also a member of the Cornish Radio Amateur Club. So, but come to Cornwall, because someone a few years ago coined the phrase DX started in Cornwall, or long distance communication. First of all, you've got Marconi at the Poldhu site. Then at Porthcurno down the coast is where the transatlantic cables came ashore, or went out to America and down to the Far East. I think now they're fiber optics. And then, of course, not very far from Poldhu, you've got Goonhilly, which is a satellite station, which is where the first signals from Telstar were broadcast around the world from the Goonhilly disc. So come to Cornwall, because there's a lot of communication history here in Cornwall, apart from the beautiful scenery, etc.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people do make it to Cornwall, but it's very special for radio as well. Anyway, John, I better let you get to your talk. We've got a few videos that we've got here that we're going to play out under your cue. So over to you. Welcome to NARC.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Well, good evening. Yes, we've had a bit of technical problems since in the last few days, and David is very kindly going to play my videos because I was afraid they might come unstuck. But the thing is, I'm going to be, obviously the talk is about a Spitfire Morse key, but there are sort of various links in the story of how I became to own a Spitfire Morse key. But let's go back 83 years now, 83 years to September the 6th, 1940, which was pretty well the height of the Battle of Britain. So let's just get in the mood of all this with a Spitfire. So David, if you'd like to play the first video for me, please. Thank you.
The gratitude of every home in our island, in our empire, and indeed throughout the world, except in the abodes of the guilty, goes out to the British airmen who, undaunted by odds, unwearied in their constant challenge and mortal danger, are turning the tide of the world war by their prowess and by their devotion. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
We're talking about total war. There's nobody else helping us. All the continents have fallen down, and it was us against this monster.
These aeroplanes represent to the British people an unwillingness to be bullied.
The country couldn't possibly have too many of these fighters.
It was a design which was brilliant. You can't fly a Spitfire and forget about it. It stays with you forever.
Enemy aircraft were falling.
You had to be very careful in landing. She was a lady in the air, but a bitch on the ground.
I looked up, and the air was filled with Germans. Had they landed, they'd have won. And the course of world history would have been changed.
You've got to always remember those who didn't come back.
This aeroplane stands for so much. Grace and gallantry. She is a symbol of freedom.
Okay, thank you, David. Well, it is a beautiful, I mean, you've all probably seen the Spitfire, but it is a gorgeous looking aircraft, isn't it? But there was a comment there that lady pilot made. She said it's a lady in the air, but a bitch on the ground. In actual fact, the Spitfire was actually quite tricky to take off because you've got this 1,500 horsepower Merlin engine sat in front of you, and the torque from that would if you opened up the power too much on takeoff, would actually twist the aircraft over and flip it over onto its side, which wasn't a very clever thing to do. And you also had to put in because it would twist to the left, you had to put some right rudder in to counteract that. And you also, unlike most aircraft, you don't give it full power. If you did give it full power, then it would flip over on its side. So you had to give it gently power, and in actual fact, a few trainee pilots did actually get killed by not being able to take off correctly and roll the plane over, which is tragic, but there we are. So it is a bit of a pig to get off the ground, and it's not terribly good to land either. Right, the next link in the story concerns a birthday present. In 2020, my birthday was in October, and my son gave me a birthday card and also an envelope with Dad written on it. And I opened up the envelope, and inside was sort of a letter, and he said, "I have bought you a flight in a Spitfire from Biggin Hill, and we can do that whenever we like, whenever it's convenient." So that was in October of 2020. We did the flight, or arranged the flight, for a Monday in August of 2021. So we drove up there on the Sunday, a little bit of rain on the way up, which didn't bode very well. Anyway, we got to Biggin Hill, stayed in the hotel for the night, got to the airport, Biggin Hill, at about 9 o'clock in the morning. The flight was supposed to go at 10. Got there, all briefed. Now, they weigh you, they put you in a flight suit, and then you watch a video on the safety of the aircraft. And they make the point that is, you're not flying in an airliner with drinks and everything supplied. You're flying in a combat aircraft. And a combat aircraft could go wrong, it could crash, and obviously you could be killed. So you have to sign a declaration that you will have no comeback against the company in case you get injured or killed. They even give you a parachute, and they tell you how to get out of the aircraft in the event of an emergency. Well, you'll see me when I get in the aircraft in a minute. So actually, there was no way was I ever going to bail out of an aircraft, of a Spitfire. I thought if I was going to die, I might as well die in a Spitfire as anything. But anyway, my son, actually, I persuaded him to get into a chase plane, and with his mobile phone, he actually filmed me from the chase plane in the Spitfire. So I think that's all I need to say about this now. But okay, David, if you'd like to run video number 2, please. Thank you. And we start, first of all, with a few stills. He put his arm around me to comfort me. And then we clamber into the aircraft and get harnessed in. Now we start. Right, he's going to shut the door now. Yep. And there are some cameras inside which are going to record. Well, there's one at my back, one at on my face. Now I've got to pump up the seat. Thumbs up to my son. Start. That's from the chase plane. And you can see the shark's teeth on the front. It's the grey nurse shark of an Australian squadron. That's the livery of the aircraft. And it's a Mark 9. Actually, we can't hear much of the sound of the engine coming. I think that's probably the zoom that's cut that out, but can't be helped. Actually, Nick with a mobile phone did an extremely good job of filming this, because we are following this chase plane. That took off first. And then when we got to the runway, we actually had to wait for another aircraft to land before we could take off ourselves. So we stopped here, and then another aircraft came in behind us. That's us stopped now, waiting for this other aircraft to land. Because you can't hear the Merlin. Beautiful sound.
I think we can actually hear, our viewers can hear it, but we've turned it down a little bit, John, just so that they can also hear you talking.
Oh, okay, fine. Thank you. Right, so the chase plane takes off first. And this is where I was wondering about not putting on too much power and flipping the airplane over. But anyway, He knows what he's doing. He's done this before. Here we go. As you can see, we've got a beautiful sunny day. We're really lucky with the weather. I knew at one time he was going to give me control of the aircraft, so I was waiting for that to happen. But first we have to rendezvous with the chase plane. So that can take videos of the Spitfire from the outside. Here we are.
As ever, I should remind everybody at home that if you want to ask questions to John, or you have any comments to make or anything, you can ask them at any time.
Certainly.
On
Yes,
BATC
certainly.
or
Yes.
Facebook, and we'll read them to John at the end of the programme.
Yeah, sure. No problem. In actual fact, I was feeling a weeny bit queasy. The pilot would also give me the option of doing a barrel roll. But they always do that, yeah. But what I found was, you see the plane is going up and down in relation to the other one, and looking at the other plane from where I was made me feel a weeny bit queasy.
Yes. I suppose you had a reference point then, didn't you? Which would kind of make you more aware of the motion of the aircraft, having seen the other one.
Yeah. So when he did come to the point of offering me a barrel roll, I declined, and I regret it to my dying day that I didn't do it.
Well, you didn't want to be ill though, would you?
It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But I did take control of the aircraft in a while. Yeah, video of it. That was exhilarating. Down towards the motorway.
I think the picture that you've got behind you in your home now, when you're talking to us, is the same one as we just saw a moment ago, wasn't it? Taken.
That's
from
right.
Yeah.
That one.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can see my shirt. Aircraft. Yeah, I think this is the bit where it sort of wobbles from side to side is where I took the flight. In actual fact, you could fly this with just 2 fingers on the joystick sort of thing. It was so responsive, it was so light, it was unbelievable. It's like all the pilots say, it's such an easy plane to fly in. You feel part of the aircraft, and the aircraft feels part of you somehow. It's such a beautiful airplane. But can you imagine 83 years ago now that these young guys are flying these things all over southern England and over France, and that's as we did a high-speed pass. And at this point, the chase plane turns back and lands. I've got the plane. The only controls I could touch was the joystick. The rudder pedals were not available, understandably.
I mean, having this video is a wonderful memento of the day, isn't it?
Oh, wonderful! Yes, it is. That because actually it was a lot longer than this. I've edited it quite short, so yeah.
Did you edit it and cut it, or did your son do it for you? Or?
Pardon? No, I edited it myself.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, they give you the two camera videos when you. It's all part of the package sort of thing.
Oh, right. I was wondering how he got those pictures of you like that one there.
Oh yeah, and then my son then gave me all the pictures that he got off his mobile phone. So I put them all together. Yeah, edited them in together. Because that's another little thing I like doing. I don't do so much of it these days, but I used to. No, it just landed. Another thing you don't want to do with a Spitfire is to hit the brakes too hard because you'll tip it on its nose. Which,
oh yeah, of
which
course,
will either damage the propeller or damage the engine as well.
I guess it's very front heavy, is it?
Yeah, it's front heavy. Yes, because that huge engine in the front weighs a ton. So yeah, you don't. Yes, so you don't stamp on the brakes. Oh, there's another one there, like, see, waiting to go out.
And where was this from again? I might have missed that.
This is Biggin Hill.
Biggin Hill, wow. That's a place to
do
it from as well, isn't it?
In that hangar, there were 3 Spitfires and a Hurricane.
So they do this quite regularly, do they?
Yes, they do it all the time, yes. There were other people queuing to go have a flight after me. Mm. Yeah. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I have a feeling you might have inspired some others to inquire about this.
Yes.
Certainly a wonderful present, a surprise.
It is. I mean, for my birthday present, that's something I should never forget. I mean, it's just incredible. Yeah. Incredible. It's worth every penny. I mean, that was actually, the flight was about 20 minutes. But you can do a flight, and of course it was just virtually around the airfield, the locale. But you can actually do a flight along the cliffs of Dover and out that way, which is about an hour. That costs a little bit more. In actual fact, it costs a lot more. But I mean, yeah, I mean, if you want to do something special and you want to do something before you pass on, become a silent key, this is one of the things you could think of doing. It's brilliant.
What do you know what he's doing, John? Tammy's just sort of whispered to me. What is he doing there? Do you know what that particular thing he just did? Is that locking the wheels or something?
I don't know what he was doing there. No, it looked like some fuel cap or something, but I don't know what it was. No, I really don't know. Sorry. Now I've got to get out of this thing now.
Yeah, I was just wondering. Just looking about where it was. I think it might be above the wheels, and I wonder if it locked them in position. Maybe if somebody knows online now watching this, they can let us know.
No, there he's got the 2 cameras now. You see that guy? He's just taking the 2 cameras out for him.
Yes, yeah.
That lady.
Really good.
That's all the video stored in that.
Yeah.
That's Barry the pilot. The grey nurse. See that bar? That red bar there?
Yes, yes.
That's the door. That's to open the door if it gets jammed.
Wow.
Well,
so reassuring. But mind you wouldn't want to open the door when you're up that high. So.
No, you wouldn't. No, but like I said, there was no way was I going to bail out of that thing. I think the only way some of the pilots could get out was to pull the canopy back, undo your belts and things, turn the plane on it upside down and fall out. I think that was one way they did it. So, if anyone wants any questions on that one, by all means.
Well, we'll read them at the end if we have.
Okay, all right.
I guess we need to ask you now about the actual Morse key, which is...
Yes. Yes, right. So the next link in the chain is the fact that I've got a friend in America called Neil, N4FN. He's in Georgia. And he saw this video, and he sent me an email. He said, John, he said, I've got a Spitfire Morse key. I said, have you? And he sent me pictures of it. And I thought, well, obviously, as I use CW quite a bit, I thought, well, I'd like to get hold of a Morse key, Spitfire Morse key myself. So I did a lot of hunting on the internet, and I eventually came across a dealer in Australia who trades under Recovery Curios, and he had the Spitfire Morse key and the lamp that goes with it. So I bought both. So after it took about 6 weeks to come. Neither of them were cheap, but they were beautifully presented with a model Spitfire on the top of each on a plinth, as you'll see. So, video number 3, please, David.
Okay. So here is the Morse key and the lamp. The Morse key has 2 switches on it, which enables the pilot to select whichever lamp he wants to use. One for the downward on the bottom of the fuselage and one for the top. Open up the and show you the insides of it. There's a circuit diagram, and the key works like this. As you can see, I've got 2 model Spitfires. This particular one is exactly the same as the one I flew in Biggin Hill. It's a grey nurse Spitfire of an Australian squadron during World War II. The grey nurse was a shark, of course, hence the shark's teeth on the front or the mouth. Okay, so I'll show you how these 2 work together.
Okay, right. Well, what happened then? I actually connected it up to my IC 7610 and made a few QSOs with it, using G3UCQ. But of course, it's a bit long-winded to tell someone I was actually using a Spitfire Morse key. So I applied to Ofcom for GB1 SMK Spitfire Morse key. So I used that for a month. And that was better. I created a page on QRZ.com, and that proved useful. But then I got an email, now that Neil in America, N4FM, knew that I'd got my own Spitfire Morse key. He sent me an email and said, why don't we have a QSO, Spitfire Morse key to Spitfire Morse key? Fine. I don't think this has ever been done before, radio to radio, or over a distance of 3,000 miles. So, we set up the QSO schedule, and this is the recording of that QSO between me and Neil over a distance of 20 meters, over a distance of about 3,000 miles. So next video, please, David. some kind of world record, I suppose. I don't think it'll ever get into the Guinness Book of Records, but David, if you can show the little QSL cards, please. There we go. That proves it.
Yes. Can I just ask a question, John? Unless I've missed something, others might be thinking the same. Excuse me. When you showed the pictures of the Morse key and the lamp, does that mean that it didn't send radio at all, or was the lamp fitted to the aircraft and that was the only method that it was signalling? Just want to check.
Yes. I should have made that clear. Yes. It was only used in emergency for silent communication from aircraft to aircraft. If anybody knows what actually kind of sort of messages they actually sent or how they sent them out, I mean, it could have been just one flash of a lamp just for, I'm okay, or two flashes for a lamp, I'm damaged or whatever, and three, I'm going home or something. I don't know what, I wouldn't have thought that they would have sent a full sort of message of any length, because obviously the key itself is mounted on the right-hand side, inside of the fuselage. So the pilot would have to send with his right hand and fly the aircraft with his left hand. So he would have to send Morse code with both. And actually, apparently, they were trained to send 15 words a minute, which takes some doing.
And thinking that the vibrations as well that must have been in that aircraft.
Exactly. And they've got a glove on, because they always wore gloves, didn't they, and things, which is why that Morse key is probably quite so big, and there's quite a long travel on it. But I mean, it begs belief, really, how they could ever have done that. But there we are. I mean, it's what these guys did. I mean, it was just amazing. But what sort of messages they ever sent, I've no idea. So if anyone's got any clue of where I might find out what kind of messages they did send, or if they know of anything, please let me know, because I'd be nice to know.
Thank you. Forgive me just asking. I wasn't sure about what it was used for.
Oh, that's okay. I should have made that clear.
No, interesting that it was used between the aircraft. Yeah, and of course completely then radio silent, so it couldn't be detected by the enemy.
No, exactly. I think the Germans had a similar kind of thing as well, but they probably did. But as I say, there was one lamp on the top of the fuselage, just behind a VHF or the aerial, and another one on the bottom, so you could switch between two or run both if you wanted to. And the switches on the key. There's quite a good bit of kit, really.
Yes.
So the final thing is, I've got just to wrap things up. There's a little bit of nostalgia. I thought this. All right, if you'd like to start running this video, I'll talk over it, David. So run the last one, please, for me.
Okay.
Thank you. Now this is, as you can see, a Spitfire flying along the White Cliffs of Dover, and we've got Vera Lynn singing in the background. Now this is not actually a real Spitfire. One of my other little hobbies is flying aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the new one that's came out a couple of years ago. And this Spitfire was actually created by an Australian company, and I couldn't resist not buying it. And I'm actually flying this Spitfire along the cliffs of Dover, as you can see there. Filmed it from the outside, recorded it from the outside. But you can see how clever the detailing is now of the cliffs of Dover. It's quite incredible. It's done from Bing mapping, and now we gradually fade it into colour as it was. There we are.
It is a fantastic. The thing is, the flight simulators come on a lot since the early versions I remember playing with on almost DOS machines and early Windows machines. Are fantastic.
I mean, every single component in that Spitfire cockpit works. Everything, and you can even fly airliners, A380s, and everything. And every switch and knob and dial works.
Does it have the Morse key as well, by the way?
No.
Because I was going to ask you as well. I mean, sure, other people, by the way, and this is a good point, and in which for people to ask questions. But did every Spitfire was every Spitfire fitted with one of those Morse keys? Do you know?
I would imagine. I don't know, but I would imagine so. There would seem no reason why not to, because if they needed to communicate using radio silence, that would be that. That's what they'd have to do.
And I
There'd be
mean,
no other way around it.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
was it unique to the Spitfire that they fitted those lights?
No,
on
I
Morse
think
keys, do you know?
Hurricanes had it, and I think possibly Lancasters as well.
Right.
Well, I would imagine the Mosquito, and I expect they probably all did, just for radio silence. I don't know, but that's the only one I've known about as far as
Okay,
the
well,
Spitfires.
thank you very much,
Yeah.
John. A fantastic
Okay,
journey
you're welcome.
and sharing with us that as well. So if you've got any questions or comments that you want to ask John, you haven't done so already, we've got a few for you already, then please do them now, enter them now, either on BATC or on Facebook where you're watching. So a few comments for you. Let me get the first one. I mean, there's a lot of people. Tony G3UCQ says, magnificent aircraft. I'll be watching them at Duxford a week on Sunday, which is the Battle of Britain Air Show. We're not that far, of course, from Duxford here.
No, I'd like to go to Duxford sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. I went last year and took my nephew, and it's really very. It's changed a lot in the last 5 years, even.
Sure.
He says, Tony also adds that he says, I'll have to drop hints to Sarah and Marie to see if they'll treat me on my birthday one year. But and that was on BATC. I should then now tell you, Tony, because you're probably not looking at Facebook as well, that Andy M0NKR has put a link for this on Facebook, but he has added, not cheap, need a couple of £1,000 to do the cheapest flight. So
3,000.
How much?
It was 3,000.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot of money, isn't it?
Right. So, and that was 20 minutes. If you do the full one, it's 5,000.
But you can imagine how much the cost of just maintaining those aircraft and all the safety and everything they must have to do.
The Merlin engine has to be overhauled every 500 hours, and it costs £100,000 just to do that, just for the engine, apart from the rest of the aircraft. And then, of course, you've got landing, takeoff fees from the aircraft. You've got to pay the pilot or all the other ground crew to keep it going. So, So
you can see where that money goes, can't you?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure it's still probably run as much as a passion as a business as well.
Sure.
What else have we got? We've got Tony M0TDK says, when I was asking what that person was doing on the wing, he thinks they were checking the fuel level in the wing tank.
Yeah.
And says and Tony also says that I think the lights are called recognition lights, and they were fitted under the centre of the wing, used for communication with the ground, particularly the army. So maybe between the ground and there, and or between aircraft, as you've said. Obviously, completely radio silent.
Well, there was one on the top of the fuselage and one on the bottom. The one on the top of the fuselage was just behind the aerial. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't. I can't bend that. You can't see it, can you?
It's difficult to point and look as well.
It's just behind my canopy there, where I was sitting in the back.
Right.
There's like a little lump. It's about halfway between that canopy and the tail. It would have been there.
Okay.
The top one, and the bottom one. I'm not quite sure where that was, but that's where the top one was.
Yeah. Well, that is fantastic. I was just gonna. I mean, it did look. I'm not a Morse CW operator, much to many people's dismay, but I must admit that. But it did look quite a stiff thing to operate. I mean, when you were sending that message, I don't know if it is in terms of a straight key. Normally, it wouldn't be quite that stiff, but I guess in an aircraft where you've got the vibrations and all the other things, it probably had to be quite responsive and quite purposeful to do that.
Yeah. In actual fact, on the key itself, there is a gadget which operates a spring which gives tension to the key, so you can either loosen it or tighten it up. I found that when I was using GB1MSK, that the travel on it was too long. It was nearly over half an inch, which is quite a long way. So what I ended up doing was opening up the case and putting some blue tack on a little end of a nut, which when I shut the lid, it meant that the key didn't have to travel down so far. It only traveled a few millimeters, so that was easier. I could send it a little bit quicker then too, but yeah.
But again,
so
using it in a normal, using it in a normal shack on a nice quiet on your desk is somewhat different to using it when you're flying a Spitfire and doing it with one hand. I mean,
with people shooting at you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just can't even imagine it. Can't imagine it.
Incredible. Amazing.
So we've got another question there, and I guess you've kind of answered it actually a little bit by coincidence. Paul Gunther's asked, is there any way of adjusting the gap of the Morse key? So maybe him, like me, thought it was quite wide.
No, there wasn't. No, but I like I say, I did it with a piece of blue tack, but that wasn't available in those days. No, but yeah, the travel was nearly half an inch, which is quite a long way. But probably, like we said, in a combat aircraft with juddering about, and you've got gloves on and everything else, probably half an inch doesn't really make much difference. In actual fact, I would imagine then you're not really sending a proper message. You're just turning a light on and off just to give someone, like I said, I'm going home or I'm damaged or whatever.
Turning back, yeah.
I don't know. Just send 2 or 3 blips and see what.
Have you any other ambitions in these sort of lines? I mean, do you have a military background yourself? What made you?
I was in the RAF. I joined the RAF in January 1961. In actual fact, it was leading me on there to something I was going to tell you about. I joined and trained as a photographer. In fact, I've been in photography all my life. I've never done electronics at all. But I got posted to Cyprus in July of '62. And while I was out there, I heard about an expedition that was going to Socotra in the Indian Ocean. And I contacted the army officer who was going to take this expedition, and I told him that I was an amateur radio operator. I got my license out there in Cyprus. I was 5B4JF. And I said I could do CW, and he said, "Oh, right. Okay." So he got me on the team, and as the team's photographer as well. So I went out to Socotra in December of 1964, and was VS9 SJF, Victor Sugar 9 Sugar Japan Fox, which was the first operation from that island, as from a radio amateur point of view. A few years ago, there was a Russian de-expedition went there, and they operated as 7 Oscar 6 Tango. And I managed to work them about 12 times, so that was nice. And one day I had a sideband contact with one of them, and I said, "You just worked VS9 SJF." And he didn't realise at the time, but he did make a comment on their page. He didn't realise at the time that he actually made a contact with VS9 SJF or G3UCQ as well. So that was nice. But if anyone wants to go on a de-expedition to Socotra, it hasn't been worked on for quite a while, can I come on a team, please? Back to me.
Well, you never know. Different people do.
It's difficult to get to now.
Another message for you. You were asking if anybody knew what sort of communications they used it for, what sort of thing they said.
No, I don't know.
Tony M0TDK has looked in his Hurricane 2 manual, and he says the lights there are called identification lights. Oh. All RAF aircraft had them then, and used them for ID for stopping the army from shooting at them. So maybe they had to manually do that if they were going over land or something like that, where the army was, I guess.
Okay.
So multiple uses, I would think.
Yes, very likely. One of the other things they had, I think, was paint the black and white stripes later on the wings to identify them from German aircraft, because some people, it looked like a bit like an ME-109, I suppose. I think that was another reason why they did that, but for identification.
Well, John, I think we've covered the questions and things there. It's been a fascinating journey, both of your wonderful birthday present and flying in the Spitfire. We almost felt like we were with you, but especially about the Spitfire Morse key, which is obviously a very, very special piece of equipment and part of our country's history. We thank you very much for joining us tonight with a fascinating story.
My pleasure. I'm glad. Good.
Thanks very much, John. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's it. Thanks very much again to John for a wonderful journey with his birthday present and of course the history of the Morse key. If you do know of anything and you find it after this programme, then drop it to a line to us, and then we'll be happy to share that with John later on. But that's almost it for NARC Live. Just to tell you what's coming on this week again, as I mentioned before, on Sunday we've got Radio by the Seaside, we've got the Caister Radio Rally, and we've also got the GB2RS News on GB3MB at 7 o'clock. On Monday, we've got Monday Night Net on GB3MB as well at 7:30, and at 8 o'clock, the 80 metre CW Net on 3.543 megahertz. And then next Wednesday, September the 13th, we're meeting at the CNS School in Norwich for a Social and Bright Sparks for the younger members between 7 and 9:30. And then the following Wednesday as well, on the 20th of September, we'll also be meeting there for a social informal, and also a discussion for those with Raspberry Pi projects. And then the following Wednesday, so that's 3 Wednesdays time, we're back here on NARC Live with Nick, G3RWF. He's going to tell us how to make that cheap, light, compact HF beam. And don't forget to keep sending your stories to us and everything else. And then if you would like to send one of these cards to anybody, let us know. But until next time, we say thank you and good night from Tammy, M0TC.
Bye-bye.
And me from JVG7URP. Take care of yourselves. Look after each other. Bye-bye.